think it's really the interest in the music for me that comes first, and I don't feel that the instrument itself is particularly interesting, and I'm not particularly interested in the instrument, maybe not as much as I should be. It's really how the instrument engages with the music and with the text. And all my favourite singers, some of them have got absolutely horrible voices, but or sometimes the flaws of their voices are what's interesting, even if they've got beautiful voices. And it's the way the flaws interact with the music and with the text, I think, that's very interesting to me. You try and sleep sleep sensibly, drink lots of water, but it's difficult to have a normal life, and I don't want to live a life wrapped up in cotton wool. So the most challenging thing at the moment is that my second child, my daughter, is 2 years old, and she brings home an enormous number of rhinoviruses, as we call them, and so I get colds all the time, and that's, for a singer, is a real. So I'm endlessly defending myself against colds.
Und der Haifisch, der hat Zähne, und die trägt er.
Kurt Weill is an interesting area for a classical singer, because one is so used to hearing the Brecht influenced style of singing. Kurt Weill's music for Brecht, and Brecht sang a lot of the early, particularly the Dreigroschenoper stuff, and I think Brecht probably had a great influence on Lotte Lenya and her style of singing Dreigroschenoper. And I got to know this music again when I was a teenager. The same German teacher who introduced me to Erlkönig introduced me to Dreigroschenoper, and so I have that sound of Lotte Lenya in my head. But I thought it would be very interesting to do a Dreigroschenoper with singers who sing more classically, because the music is actually beautiful and difficult music to sing, and I think that'll give a different impact to a performance like this.
Der Mensch lebt durch den Kopf, der Kopf reicht ihm nicht aus. Versuch es nur von deinem Kopf, lebt höchstens eine Laus.
Cold and rather cowardly and mean and very modern. I mean, people have this idea that he's got to be some sort of tough bandit, but he's not. He's more like the sort of person who'd probably be working in one of the pyramid schemes today, taking money from people. I think we have a hangover from the Macheath of the highwayman Macheath of the 18th century, this idea that he's got a little bit of the hero about him, and I don't think he has anything of the heroic about him at all. In fact, maybe he's closest to... there's a character in crime fiction, a wonderful American writer called Patricia Highsmith, and she created a character, Tom Ripley, and maybe he's a bit like Tom Ripley.
Und Macheath, der hat ein Messer, doch das Messer sieht man nicht.
It doesn't push any of the buttons that we expect from romantic music, although it's full of beautiful romantic music. It's full of Verfremdungseffekte. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to make us, to pull us up short and say, well, actually, this is sentimental. It's very much it's a post First World War piece. It's a piece that's incredibly suspicious of sentimentalism, because it had seen too much of that before the First World War, and it felt that after the First World War none of that was of any relevance anymore.
Denn für dieses Leben ist der Mensch nicht schlau genug. Niemals möcht eben diesen Lug und...
There are some wonderful moments. I think possibly the sort of the deepest moment is the Ruf aus der Gruft towards the end, which is based on a poem by François Villon. And that's a fantastically urgent and quite scary, dark, serious piece. There's a wonderful sort of ironic, detached, cold, sort of Neue Sächlichkeit love story between Mackie Messer and Polly Peachum, which reminds me in some ways of the sort of irony that you find in Heinrich Heine. So he's saying he's in love, but he's not really in love at all. He's just playing at being in love, and that's an interesting thing to deal with. And then the Kanonen song is great fun that he sings with Polizeipräsident Braun. But the great numbers, the great standards in the Dreigroschenoper are really for the women particularly, and I'm longing to hear Angelika Kirchschlager sing the Salomon song, for example, which is such an amazing piece of music, so simple and yet so telling, and to hear Dorothea Röschmann sing the Barbara song and Seeräuber Jenny as well, which that's just wonderful songs.
Komm heraus, du Schönheit von Soho, zeig doch mir mal deine hübschen Beine. Meinst du, ich möchte auch?
The sort of obvious things, beautiful voices and commitment to putting across a story and an emotion. And I've done a lot of work with both Doro and Angelika, particularly in the Schubertiade in Schwarzenberg. I've done a lot of recital tours with Dorothea in the United States, for example, in London, and they're just fantastically committed artists. Wonderful.